And first up is Rick Pastore, the research principal at Sustainable IT. More and more companies are needing to measure their social and environmental impact, either because of pressure from consumers or investors or regulators. And that data collection and analysis usually funnels through IT departments. Rick has spent 25 years advising technology leaders with a focus on sustainability. And through his organization, Sustainable IT, he helps executives with everything from planning around upcoming regulations to organizing their teams to better collect internal data. Rick, welcome to Future Compute.
So if you're the reporter for AI, that means you're not getting any sleep. I feel bad for you, but it's a great topic. So the topic here is accelerating the journey to net zero, which isn't going to happen unless IT is involved in the equation. And that was really the reason that sustainableIT.org got started by a group of IT leaders who said, we need to mobilize, we need to accelerate, we need to get a seat at the strategy table, and we need to be part of the execution, or the CEO's commitment to net zero is not going to be fulfilled, embarrassingly and publicly, right? IT needs to be there. So one of the things that we put together was this 12 characteristics of a sustainable IT function. What does it look like? Well, we have 3 pillars, E, S, and G. And in environmental, a sustainable IT organization is carbon neutral. It's got green IT infrastructure and operations. It's created a circular pattern as much as possible for its hardware and devices, and it's eliminating e-waste. In social, the technology is being designed inclusively and for maximum accessibility by stakeholders. In governance, you're doing what you're always doing. Data usage, privacy, and cybersecurity. That's already being taken care of, so you can check that one. But then, what about innovation? So environmentally and socially and economically sustainable tech innovation is a goal and an area that IT has direct responsibility for. You'll also see that there's some overlaps here between these pillars. So the overlap between governance and social is socio-economic sustainability. And there you see IT having some responsibility for the next generation of skills and upskilling the future workforce. Because what's happening? AI, for example. And sustainable AI is one of the key characteristics of a digital sustainability program that you've been hearing about so far. So this is IT, but there's another set of pillars, similar but slightly different, and this is what IT should be doing for the business, for the enterprise, and specifically taking the data that is needed. It's kind of the chlorophyll of the sustainability tree, right, for the whole enterprise. Taking that data and identifying it, collecting it, distributing it, and making it available for analysis for the decision makers. Not just for the regulators, but for how do we get more sustainable? We need data. So again, it's environmental, social, and governance. You're finding and you're basically the data guru for things like energy consumption, emissions figures, 1, 2, and 3 scope, the rates of your circularity and the volumes of devices that are being refurbished, resold, and repurposed. You're collecting information on in governance for regulatory compliance, making sure that this data is auditable, because it will be audited by external organizations. It has to stand up to audits the same way financial data is standing up to audits. And you'll also be responsible for the company's innovation processes and principles. And we'll talk more about those principles and how they relate to enterprise architecture, because that's our current project that I'm going to share with you. So again, 12 characteristics, 12 key points of data. Now, this is a lot more than 12. This is about 240 standardized topics and metrics nested together across ES and G that our organization put together tailored to IT functions. So what the big takeaway from this is IT's scope and breadth of impact on enterprise sustainability. If IT is not at the table, not a partner to the chief sustainability officer, you're leaving a lot of this on the table. You're leaving it out of the equation. So how are you going to accelerate? This is more of a close-up view of what we're talking about here. So every one of these standards has a code, and there are code families. Just like SASB and the GRI sustainability standards that we map to, by the way. So, for example, sourcing is on the list under environmental, and you've got green sourcing, you've got software and hardware separated there, and then nested in them are 3 sets of metrics. The percentage of your installed base sourced sustainably, the percentage of new purchases over a certain time period, you can track that, and the percentage of total spend, which is what people tend to default to in this area. Now, so you have the standards and the metrics, but what our latest project has been to look at enterprise architecture. Enterprise architecture is your roadmap for the future of your businesses and the technology they're going to run on. So you need to embed sustainability into that from the get-go. And so what we put together are 10 sustainability principles that should be part of your architecture stack. The architecture stack here being business, data, application, technology, that's the hardware, security, and integration, which is the APIs and so forth. The 10 sustainability principles start off with sustainability primacy. It's basically saying it counts now. It has to be prominent and primary. Having an ethical foundation upon which your architecture is based, integrating E, S, and G, having resource efficiency as part of this. It was probably already there, right? But that was financial efficiency. We're talking about resources, water, minerals, and so forth. Life cycle sustainability. Data centers and cloud get their own principle. That's how big and important that is. Also, the vendors and how you work with your supply chain in your architecture designs is a principle. Digital inclusion, that's the accessibility and inclusive design we talked about earlier. And sustainable innovation, that's my favorite one. I'll go into depth on that in a minute. And continuous improvement. So what you see in this flower, I didn't design it, but we have designers that want to be organic, and that's fine in this case. You see a heat map here with the level of relevance for these principles to each type of architecture. The darkest red is the highest level of relevance and impact, but that's not the important part here. What's really more important is that behind those principles are definitions. Behind the definitions are actions. We're actually saying what you can do to apply these principles in these architecture areas. And we're also giving you standards to measure progress. If these principles are in place, are you getting the results that they're there to facilitate? So you'll see under principle number 9, that's my favorite again, sustainable innovation. It's innovation efforts being prioritized for sustainability and seeking out solutions that offer environmental and social benefits. The rationale is that this will enable architecture to contribute positively to ESG objectives for your business. The implications of applying that principle to architecture, it may require a different funding model, perhaps, or some adaptations to how innovations are funded, including perhaps going after grants and third parties and venture that may not have been part of the equation for most innovations in the past. And then our standards, with their codes, are listed here that can be used to measure success in sustainable innovation. So you can measure the level of responsible tech innovation. There's several metrics for that. The future of work. Is this innovation putting people out of work, or are you making sure that you're bringing new skills to bear? And then sustainable AI. There's a whole set of metrics around that. Now, another example is, let's look at application architecture. So we define it, the same standard definition you're used to, which is defining the applications for business operations. And they have to meet goals of scalability, reliability, maintainability. But in addition, supporting environmental and social sustainability objectives throughout their life cycle. That's the spin that sustainability brings to that. You'll also see that we have a set of directives. There's only 3 here, but there are a lot more. And these are actions that, like I said, will allow you to apply the principle in the real-world environment. So, for example, designing systems, when it comes to design, that use eco-friendly technologies, things you're familiar with, like containerization, energy-efficient coding, algorithm efficiency, virtualization, and low power consumption API models. Also adopting software engineering practices that prioritize resource efficiency, including green coding standards that our partner organization, the Green Software Foundation, have articulated and gotten certified, in some cases by ISO. And finally, you also see that another directive applies to machine learning and using computation-light algorithmic models. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. Like I said, we've created a bunch of directives, a bunch of standards that all flow back to enabling enterprise architecture to be an asset for sustainability in your organizations. Now, I'd like to bring attention to a couple of individuals who have joined us here that have been helping with these projects, because it is a nonprofit with members that roll up their sleeves and get involved and produce items to share and fill gaps that they've identified. So Lisa Pratico is here. Lisa is a former chief enterprise architect at HP. She's local. She is working on AI-specific sustainability principles and linking the various enterprise architecture principles to sustainability. And she's just published some articles on this. You can find them on her LinkedIn site. You can also find the link to these principles, by the way, on her LinkedIn and also on sustainablement.org. You can download the whole set. Now, I'd also like to bring up, actually, Shane Artis. Shane is from Morgan Stanley. Come on up, Shane. Shane helped develop the entire 240 sustainability standards with us. I mean, it was a grueling effort. And Shane also can talk a bit about these enterprise architecture principles. Thanks for joining us.
All right, thank you so much, Rick, and thank you for your time today. So Rick said early in the presentation that you need to be working with your Chief Sustainability Officer. You need to be showing up. We are here to show up. We're here at Morgan Stanley. We're a founding member of Sustainable IT. We've worked together on the standards. We've worked together on the principles. Obviously, Sustainable IT does the great large amount of the work, but we're here to participate in that, to be a part of that, and to show that we are committed to this. I'm an MIT alum. I'm the Distinguished Engineer at Morgan Stanley, and I manage our sustainable finance and resilience technology programs at the firm. Catherine Wetmer, our CIO, is a board member of Sustainable IT as well. So this is something we're deeply committed to, we're participating in, and we take very seriously. For technology principles in particular, something we're doing recently and something we espouse, we think this is a good practice, is to incorporate technology principles and have sustainability as one of those core pillars. So we're embarking on a modernization program. Every company probably is doing one. You have a life cycle of software, hardware, and data. They grow, they evolve, they die. And in that process, you're always figuring out what to do next, what your next modernization step is. By embedding sustainability in your core technology principles, your enterprise architects, your senior leadership can see you're committed. You have words you can say. You can't, if you want to do it, you need to say it. And so we say it, and now we can do it. We can do it at a senior level, and we can do it at a grassroots level. And we can engage with architects early in the design process to be more sustainable. We can do, as companies, we can sort of take these principles and think of it as a way to do enterprise architecture with sustainability right out of the box. You don't have to reinvent these wheels. We're doing, our own version. We're a large company. We do our own things, and every company we think should and can do their own thing. But it starts with writing it down, with saying it, and then starting to live it. When you do deep dives into data center analysis, or you do management consulting for your own internal technology teams, as you teach them how to gather metrics and apply metrics to the work they're doing, the technology they're rolling out, you can change the firm. And we do this, it takes a long time, but it starts here.
Excellent. Thank you, Shane. It's really building it in at the front. You don't retroactively become sustainable. You have to build it in at the beginning. All right, thank you. James, we're going to have a little bit of Q&A going here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, have a seat.
Thanks.
So I have some questions of my own to get started with, but if anybody's in the room with questions, feel free to raise a hand and we'll get a mic to you, and then anybody online with questions, you can submit those and we'll try and get to those as well. I think when you showed that big chart of ESG principles, people wouldn't be wrong for getting intimidated by so many different things to be concerned with at once. So what would you say are sort of the lowest hanging fruits for people to start with?
Well, really, people do a materiality assessment on those standards to say which ones are most important to our stakeholders and could have the biggest impact on our particular business. And one of your stakeholders is the regulatory agencies or institutions that govern your business. There are about 16 metrics that are very common across IT, across industries, across countries. And we're actually documenting the data lifecycle for those 16 as part of a crowdsourced research program with our members. So I think the low-hanging fruit are those 16 metrics. Some are data center specific, some are e-waste specific. A lot of places that IT organizations start out with is just taking a look at their e-waste. What are they throwing out? What are they recycling? How many closets full of old systems do they have? Are those worth anything to anybody? Is there a disadvantaged community near our facility that could benefit from these? It doesn't take new expertise to deal with that. It just takes some attention. And it usually leads to a good story and a feel-good opportunity to say we made a difference.
Mm. And when you think about leadership, I know some companies have chief sustainability officers. I'm wondering if you could talk to that role. Is that sort of a thing of the past? And if you were to advise new companies, is that a role that's worth building?
Well, if you put the slides live, you can see a set of real-world best practices that are emerging among IT organizations. And one of the most important is for IT to step forward and offer to partner with the peers that are accountable for sustainability. And that includes the chief sustainability officer, who often doesn't have a technology background, doesn't necessarily have an ongoing dialogue with their counterpart in IT, but they're probably collecting data manually, and it's probably awful. And if you go up to them and say, I can help you automate that, you're an instant partner. And you're at the table, at least for the execution part. So that's one of the best practices, is offer to partner with those accountable peers. And another area to really get started in is education. Your staff don't know what they can do to improve sustainability at your company or even in their jobs. But if you show them what they can do, if you can show them the impact that IT has just in the data centers, just in the networking, they will rise to the occasion. I have all these stories about enthusiastic IT teams saying, all right, I get it. I want to be part of the solution. What can I do? And you have to actually give them opportunities to make a difference because it'll improve their morale in the job and actually probably keep them longer in your organization because they're doing something that they believe in as well as their job.
Yeah, I'm hoping you can speak to advice you'd give for sort of responding to regulatory changes, right? So I know California has passed some laws that sort of strengthen these carbon reporting requirements, Europe as well. So either one of those, or pick any other example. What makes sort of a good response to that change, and what makes a bad one?
The regulatory compliance is not on the shoulders of IT specifically. It's legal's burden to a large extent, and chief compliance officers and so on. But IT needs to be a partner, needs to be the data guru, needs to make sure that the data is auditable. But look at regulations as a motivator for action. Regulatory compliance is a key motivator, and the other key motivator that IT can leverage is customer demand. The customers of your businesses want to know what you're doing for ESG sustainability, and IT can help answer that question, and in a sense, become the conduit for that information in a centralized, efficient, and automated as much as possible way. IT is part of the answer here. And if IT isn't part of the answer, like we said at the beginning, the CEO is not going to meet their commitment date, and it'll be a public miss. So, they need to come to you guys, and you need to come to them, and you need to say, we can get this done, and we're already part way there. Because actually, IT has done sustainable efforts more so than you think. If you look at what you're doing already, you'll find that you've got, well, here's a list of 9 things to start with, 9 actions. You probably have 4 or 5 of these already under your belt. The things that are less obvious are, for example, communicating with your vendors, your IT vendors. You need to talk to them about your vision and your plans for sustainability, and you need to find out what their plans are and what they're doing and what kind of data they can supply you with. Unfortunately, the vendors are a little behind on that, especially cloud providers. They're not transparent enough right now. They know they need to be better at it, and collectively you can put pressure on them to do that. Starting to monitor your energy consumption, your on-premise energy consumption. The 2 main areas are end-user devices and data center servers. And if you're doing AI internally, then that's going to be an outsized contributor to that problem. But don't wait till you get all the data. Just start looking at the data you do have. Don't let perfection get in the way, they always say, of getting going on this, because at least on the environmental pillar, time is of the essence.
Great. And I think that's all the time we have, but thank you so much, Rick.